It's a Saturday in the summer of 1975. The father is home by 4. The mother has been home longer. The kids are somewhere in the neighborhood, which is to say they are home too. Dinner will happen at 6. Nobody is answering a work email because work does not have his home address. The evening has not been spent in advance. The week has a margin. Now picture your Saturday. Errands stacked into daylight. Phones glowing at the dinner table. One adult still logged in at 8. That margin is gone. The average American family in 1975 had roughly 7 more hours of free time per week than the average American family has today. 7 hours. Every week. Every year. You did not lose that time because you were disorganized. You lost it because a very specific decade engineered it away. This was not burnout. It was a blueprint. In this video, we're going to show you exactly how 3 forces, the 1973 collapse of the wage productivity link, the forced arrival of the second paycheck, and the quiet deletion of the boundary between work and home, dismantled the American week. We will show you when it happened and who benefited. Start with what a weeknight in 1975 actually looked like. 1 commute, not 2. 1 paycheck, not 1.5. The father walks in around 5. Dinner is on the table because someone was home to make it. The television has 3 channels and none of them start until evening. Saturday is not a to-do list. Saturday is a room the family sits inside. This was not simpler times. It was a structurally different economy. From 1948 to 1973, American productivity rose by roughly 97%. Over the same years, the typical worker's compensation rose by about 91%. The 2 numbers moved together. Wages and output moved in lockstep for 25 years. That was the deal. The country got more productive. The paycheck got bigger, and the family got to keep the difference. The difference was time. Free time. In 1975 was not a lifestyle choice. It was the financial slack left over after 1 paycheck paid the mortgage, the car, the groceries, and the dentist. When 1 income could carry a household, the second adult's hours were not owned by anyone. Those hours became the porch, the garden, the neighborhood, the long dinner, the unscheduled afternoon. Americans in 1975 were not better at balancing work and life. They had a wage structure that gave life enough room to breathe. And then, very quietly, in the early 1970s, that wage structure stopped working. The shadow of the paycheck began to shrink. The margin began to close. The year is 1973. Real wages for the typical American worker hit a peak they would not cleanly surpass, in inflation-adjusted terms, for decades. Productivity kept climbing. The paycheck did not. That is not a footnote. That is the entire story. Between 1973 and today, productivity has nearly doubled. Typical hourly compensation has crawled. The gap between what American workers produce and what American workers are paid became the largest wealth transfer in the country's history. And it happened quietly, year by year, paycheck by paycheck, with no hearing, no announcement, and no villain you could point to by name. The villain was the architecture. Productivity gains stopped flowing to wages and started flowing to shareholders, executives, and asset prices. Then came the human consequence. In 1975, about 46% of American women were in the paid labor force. Today, that number is closer to 58%. Among married mothers, participation went from roughly 47% in 1975 to over 70% today. This was sold as liberation. For millions of women, it genuinely was. But for millions more, it was something else. A household that used to run on 1 paycheck now required 2 to stand still. A 2-income household is not double the freedom. It is double the commute, double the coordination, double the childcare logistics, and half the evening. The second paycheck paid the mortgage. The second paycheck also ate the margin. And once the second paycheck was mandatory, every other piece of American life had to bend around it. The bend came fast. The average American commute stretched from about 21 minutes each way in 1980 to more than 27 minutes today, and for a dual-earner household, that is 1 full hour on the highway every single week that did not exist in 1975. Inside the home, employed married mothers were putting in roughly 15 extra hours a week of unpaid labor on top of a full-time job, a second shift, stacked on the first one, invisible on every pay stub. Then the scaffolding that used to protect American time collapsed too. Union membership fell from about 28% of workers in the early 1970s to around 10% today. Private sector union density is closer to 6%. Airline deregulation in 1978, trucking in 1980, and rail in 1980. Each traded worker schedule predictability for corporate flexibility. Just-in-time labor became normal. So did the word flexibility, which in practice meant on-call. The most damning number is the international one. By the turn of the century, the average American worker was putting in more than 250 extra hours per year compared to the average French or German worker. Not because we were more ambitious, because we were the only rich country that never legally protected a vacation. And then the smartphone put the office in the kitchen. The last border fell. There was no 5 o'clock anymore. There was only later. The 40-hour week didn't get longer on paper. The rest of life got denser underneath it. That is how a decade steals 7 hours without ever sending you a bill. We didn't lose hours. We lost the shape of a week. We lost the Saturday that belonged to no one. We lost the father home at 4. We lost the mother who was not also a logistics coordinator. We lost the porch, the block, the pot roast, the phone call that wasn't a notification. We lost the long evening, and an evening is where life actually happens. The decade didn't steal our time. It stole our presence. And presence, once it's gone, does not come back on the next paycheck. None of this was inevitable. Another country in the same years, with the same technology, wrote different laws and kept its weekends. We didn't. We deregulated the predictable schedule. We broke the union that would have fought for the evening. We let the wage stop tracking the work. We accepted the second paycheck as a solution instead of admitting it was a surrender. And we called the whole arrangement freedom. We did this one policy, one paycheck, one flexible shift at a time. Tell me, in one sentence, what did your family used to do on a weeknight in 1975 that nobody has time for now?